Okay, part two. Even though I woke up on time for work, my head was killing me. The melody greeted me in my head, and it wasn't as beautiful as I remembered. The pulsating, repetitive music was awful. As I walked towards the kitchen, I could hear Rachel humming. I asked her if she could please be quiet, but she hummed louder. I went back into the room to wait for her to leave for work. I was relieved when I heard her car pull out of the driveway. I was not feeling my best, but I was happy she was gone. I turned on the radio as I prepared breakfast. I was hoping the music would drown out the song in my head, but it didn't work. After I finished my breakfast, I grabbed my book bag and began to walk out the door. Suddenly, I had a sharp shooting pain on the left side of my head. I could not be late to work, so I fought through the pain. As I drove to work, the pain got worse and worse. And then I heard a fluttering in my ear. The fluttering can only be described as a butterfly trying to free itself from my eardrum. I pulled over to the side of the road to focus, but the melody, pulsating, fluttering, and pain were all too much. I finally arrived to work, but my productivity was very limited. Rachel noticed my odd facial expressions as we passed in the hallway. I pulled her to a corner and told her I was having a weird fluttering in my ear. I confided in her about the lightning bolt flashes of pain and that damn song I couldn't get any relief from. She told me about earworms. They're songs that you can't get out of your head. I laughed at the name. Earworms are a real thing. I hum all the time, so I should know, she said. Or maybe you have a brain tumor. As the day progressed, I started thinking more and more about the potential brain tumor. I was scared, but I made an appointment to have an MRI done. The days ticked by, and as I functioned as well as I could with the excruciating pain and other symptoms. The moment finally arrived for my MRI. I sat in the waiting room and tried not to draw attention to myself by humming the ever-present song in my head. My name was called, and I was taken to the back and asked basic screening questions. The technician gave me earplugs to put in my ears to help block the noise of the MRI. As I placed the earplugs in my ears, the fluttering seemed to react as if it was annoyed. I tried to remain calm as I laid on the hard surface and closed my eyes. The gradual knocking sounds of the MRI worsened the fluttering and the pain. Eventually, I was so uncomfortable, I pushed the emergency button. I held my head as I exited the MRI machine and tried to calm whatever was pissed off. Before I realized it, I was screaming, "Get it out!" and hitting my head. The sharp pains increased with the self-inflicted whacks to my head. It crossed my mind briefly that I could end up in the psych ward, but I did not care. It took multiple staff members to calm me down, and I wasn't able to finish my MRI. The nurse said I had a panic attack and it would need to be rescheduled. It was a whole week before I could have another MRI. I was disappointed when I got my results. My doctor prescribed migraine medication for my headaches, and she said the fluttering was probably just compensation for the pain. The diagnosis she gave me made no sense. I knew that she was just making up information to get me out of the office. It was time for band practice. I decided to go since I missed the last two rehearsals. I hoped I could stay focused considering that I had my own private concert in my head. Everyone got in front of their instruments. I adjusted the microphone and listened to the band as they demonstrated what they have been working on so far. My head began to hurt even more, and the increasing flutters wanted me to know how much they hated the noise, especially the drums. I had to excuse myself, and I ran to my car for relief. John, one of my band members, came to check on me. I told him I was having a migraine and I wasn't able to continue right now. He was disappointed, but he said he'd let everyone else know. I was cursing myself as I drove home. By the time I arrived to my house, the fluttering and pain had subsided, but the song was still present. Rachel was watching TV in the den, so I crept to my room and went to bed. When I awoke the next morning, I tried everything I could think of to get rid of the melody. I tried humming it, blocking it, and even singing it. I hoped that getting it out would satisfy the Tourette's like desire of my brain to play it over and over. Nothing worked, and in my frustration, I decided to call out of work. I took sleeping pills throughout the whole day to give myself relief from the pain. I eventually decided I should eat some dinner. As I walked into the kitchen, I saw Rachel cooking her meal. She was humming and twirling around as if she was at a sold out concert featuring herself. Rachel looked up and saw me, but continued her performance. I asked her how much longer she thought she would have to live with me at this house. I explained that the arrangement just wasn't working out. She took the news surprisingly well, and she said she needed at least a month to secure another place. She quickly changed the topic and asked me if I liked the song she was humming. Yeah, sure, I said. I sat down at the kitchen table and held my head in my hands, hoping for relief. Rachel came over and began rubbing my shoulders. I felt her breath on my back as she began humming louder and louder in my ear. She gripped my shoulders as I tried to get up, and I practically had to push her off me. As she released her grip, the melody she was humming joined the other one in my head. The two melodies battled in my head, and the fluttering accompanied them. I screamed at her and asked her what the hell was she thinking. Rachel looked shocked and said I was just trying to relax you. I thought you liked the song. I wanted to bang my head on the counter as the two songs took over my thoughts. Rachel stormed out of the kitchen, but her behavior was the confirmation that I needed to prove that she really was in my room the other night. I decided to go confront her. I knocked on her door, and she opened it with piercing evilness in her eye. Look, Rachel, I want to talk to you about your humming. I know you were humming in my ear a few nights ago, and tonight you did the same thing. I can't get your damn songs out of my head. She looked dumbfounded, but I knew it was all an act. I'm serious about you moving out, I said. I didn't wait for her to respond. I simply told her good night and went into my room. As I laid in bed, I felt fluttering on the opposite side of my head. The fluttering got louder and louder. I couldn't focus, and I felt the worst pain I've ever had in my entire life. I stuck my finger in my ear and felt something retract. Thinking I imagined it, I slowly inserted my finger again, but this time I felt a sharp pinch. I withdrew a pin-sized drop of blood on my finger. I know it sounds crazy, but whatever was in my ear bit me. My finger throbbed. I immediately grabbed a cotton swab out of the cabinet and semi-aggressively dug around in my ear. And the cotton was pulled partially off by the swab and by whatever bit me. I was panicked and I screamed for Rachel. She arrived almost immediately, as if she was already on her way to come and see me. What's wrong? She asked. My ear, there's something in my ear. Rachel looked in my ear and joked that all she saw was hair. Seriously, Rachel, something bit me. Look at my finger. I showed her my finger, but it was as if nothing had happened. This strange occurrence only added to my frustration as I tried to explain that my finger was just bleeding a second ago. Listen, She told me to take my pills and lay back down, and we'll go to the emergency room in the morning. I laid down, but the melodies were as loud as ever. I was too afraid to go to sleep, knowing that there was something in my ear. Part 3 on the way.